districts, you're going to have enough compensation for that to be a real motivator. I think it can act as kind of a thank you for your service kind of thing, but people have to lead with, kind of that servant leadership mentality, which Viterbo, is kind of a cornerstone of Viterbo. That's my 2 cents.
Well, leaders emerge in any organization, and I and the reading specialist in my building, we develop the PLC schedule for every Friday. We don't compensate, but it's during school time, and I think our teachers realize this is what we need to do. Our leaders emerge based upon what we need to address in our PLC. And people have different motivations, they have different interests, and so we allow them to lead when that arises. And I think that's part of that shared leadership that we have, and I embrace that. I don't really want anybody just taking over a PLC and dominating it every Friday. So.
We do not provide extra compensation per se. In some cases, our team leaders who are compensated are the PLC leaders. In other cases, they're not. In other cases, there's a lot of ownership as a PLC leader and team leader. In other cases, it's not. So there's not specific compensation for it.
Just have a question for Mr. Zimmerman. For your PLC, like Onalaska Middle School has BLT, leadership, building leadership committees, teams. Now in a smaller district, do you have your PLC leaders together as a team, or do you just meet together?
It shifts. It changes. It could be by department. It could be by special education, PLC. It always shifts. We don't have the same groups every Friday. That's what's unique about the small districts.
Comparing a larger district to a smaller district and having an actual meeting versus full staff.
And it's tough with our encore subjects for teachers. They just, at times they feel like they just don't fit in. So that's a challenge for scheduling. Our teacher, we have one art teacher in the district, so she travels between buildings, and she just feels like at times she just doesn't fit in. So it's part of my role is to make sure I have all teachers included and not to feel like they're excluded from PLC.
To piggyback on Greg's too, the challenge too is you don't want someone to be part of a team just because you want them on a team, which is where we've struggled sometimes with some of our singleton people. Family consumer education teacher, she's the only one in the district, the only one in the building, and sometimes we try to orchestrate things, and then it's like we're just doing this for the sake of including her. And so, I mean, there's different pieces that are hard too, that you don't want to diminish the value of collaboration simply to make sure that someone has a spot to collaborate within the building.
That kind of leads to how do you create shared vision and ensure the shared vision is the goals of the PLC? And then in that case, how do you try to avoid or reduce that difference?
That sounds like a middle school question.
Coming from the same middle school.
Yeah.
Or used to.
Well, I think you give them, first of all, some input into the vision, so you can get some buy-in. You certainly have 4 essential questions that should drive our PLC. That should be non-negotiable. But they've got to have some buy-in to it. They've got to have a voice into it as well. As far as the victim speak, I'll go back to the calling piece. Sometimes I have conversations with professionals, and especially lately with Act 10 and the political climate in our state, you get some of that victim speak. And, but I always go back to them, why did you go into this? If this is truly a calling for you, then my 2 cents is don't allow any political entity, governor, tough situation to take you off that path. If this is a calling, then you should have the emotional fortitude to, take body shots and keep on going, and do what's best for kids. that doesn't mean that you don't listen to their concerns. Because oftentimes those concerns are very valid, and so you want to listen to those concerns. But I think when you have those kind of crucial conversations, it's important to get back to, is this a calling for you, and why did you want to do this in the first place? And don't let outside forces control that calling that you have for this.
You know, the shared vision, I'll address that piece. About 5 years ago, the last 5 years, our vision has been very consistent. It's been purposely very redundant. We use some of the same slides at the beginning of every year, the last 5 years, and the purpose of that is always to be redundant, that the vision isn't changing. And before anyone wrinkles their nose when I say it, you know, our vision is take it to 25, and that does reflect an ACT goal, it reflects a board goal. But before you say, well, that's, you know, standardized test score, the whole purpose is that when students leave, and we emphasize this piece, we want them to have all doors open to them. If they want to go into the military, we want them to, you know, test into a higher classification. So A, they're being compensated more, and B, they're hopefully safer. If they're going to TC, we don't want them to have to take remedial courses. We want them to be able to start immediately in their program because it leads to a higher graduation rate and obviously placement rate and employment afterward in the related field. If they want to go to a four-year college, we want them to be able to go to a four-year college. 25 doesn't mean you're going to Madison perhaps, but it means you're going to be able to have different choices. And so that take it to 25 is all about making sure those doors are all open to them after graduation. And for the few that go directly into the workforce, we want them to be able to have the problem-solving skills and reading skills necessary to be able to succeed. That is something that we continually reference in all PD. It's something we continually reference is not the work of the four core areas, it's the work of the entire building, because simply put, if the expectations are there in every single PLC, there's not that inconsistency for students. The consistency is there across the board. It drives the fact that we have to make sure we have interventions in place in every different, you know, curricular area. And, you know, even one of my staff members, my FIA teacher said to me last year, I like it when you share this data every year with us. I like it how we talk about this all the time because A, I'm a parent in the district, and B, I think it's really important that we have all these opportunities available when our kids leave here. So that's how we share that vision. It's purposely redundant, and I think overall most of the staff believe that it's important that kids have those options when they leave high school. Because the saddest thing for high school principals is to sit in a meeting at the middle of the senior year and know that that student doesn't have any options available after high school other than a really tough road in life.
We developed our shared vision about 4 years ago. 3 words: learn, achieve, succeed. I like that. I mean, it's because you can always reference back to it. If you start getting the victim speak, and it's like, why are we here? For students to learn, for students to achieve, for students to succeed. To learn, how can we help them learning? How can we help them if they're not learning? Achieve, let's take a look at data. Let's look at our results. Succeed, we want to see our kids succeed. And I think that goes along with what you had to say about where they go from here. To succeed, for some students I know, is just to get a high school diploma in their hands. And then to move on. And so I think those 3 words, that was wonderful. When we sat down as an entire staff and brainstormed on an in-service day, it was time well spent. Because it's easy to put up on the walls, it's in the hallways, right out in front of school, to remind ourselves of that, especially when times get tough.
I think the common denominator here is that we all spend time on it. You can tell this is present in every one of our buildings. It's something that comes up at the beginning of the year, at staff development, at in-service days, and in our daily work of our PLCs. And if your vision is not living and breathing, then that's where you get victim speak and you lose the shared component.
So kind of going off the PLCs again, how do you motivate staff to actually meet for the PLCs? Being in a small district, we definitely find it very challenging to find time to meet during the day. So ours are typically after school. And then how do you get teacher buy-in to this?
I think the biggest thing is if people can see that of functioning as a professional learning community. If you're a true PLC, that collaboration you have truly makes your job easier, more enjoyable, you feel supported, you're seeing higher rates of student success. There are students, and we can all meet their needs together. I'm no longer alone or wondering is this what I should be doing? So using data, and we have district surveys in Holmen that also show how our students are feeling in the building that we can use. And then again, when people feel the support of their colleagues, they don't want to turn back. But unfortunately, sometimes it's not a motivation, it's a you have to. When I started making PLCs truly meet in Ettrick, it was a you have to. And I know you don't have common time with grade level PLCs, but you're going to meet K2 and 3-5, and they had say in that, and those were the groupings they chose. And well, when can we meet? We can meet, you have a longer lunch block, you can meet before school, you can meet after school, and making sure that that time was available for them. And now I'm happy to say I'm gone and they're still meeting and seeing the benefits.
It's really hard when you have people that are members of different PLCs. I mean, from a freshman webinar we watched last week, a group of us, we really came across the need to have a freshman PLC, a freshman teacher core PLC specifically, as we think about some things we need to infuse. Well, now, you know, Aaron, who's a math teacher in Algebra 1, is not going to be available for his Algebra PLC because, you know, whenever that freshman PLC meets, and likewise with the different teachers that are part of it, you know, so that does obviously add more complexity to it. And whenever you can schedule it during the contract day, it's better, but that's not as easy to do as it might seem to do.
I think coming from teaching in high school and then going to the middle school, the motivation for staff to meet, I think that's a much easier sell at a middle school because middle schools are very collaborative in nature, and you have pods or teams or whatever you call them in your district. The specifics part is not just the meeting, but meeting as a PLC in the middle school. So really the motivation to meet, I've never had very many issues at a middle school level with motivating people to meet. They want to collaborate. The key for us is collaborating about the right things.
My master's professors always told me from Milwaukee that high school staff members are independent contractors who happen to share a common parking lot. and that probably speaks to what Ben just said.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's my question.
We can already answer that. How do you deal with small schools with PLCs? Where do you find the time? Late start during the school day?
Well, I mentioned when we have it, but before then, we tried it before school. That was tough because teachers wanted to focus on getting the school day started and doing what they had to do. We tried it after school. Teachers were spent from the school day. We did something a little revolutionary by building it in and having an early release, and it's worked really well. We've even had some neighboring school districts that are small like we are that are now going toward a late start or an early release. And I think sometimes it just, you like to steal from somebody else, and I think other people were stealing from us, and that's fine. It works for them too. And I think having gone to this, it's worked out really well. And I think it ties in with the motivation part too. Teachers are really motivated to come into the PLC at a 2:15 on a Friday. And I think that, like, okay, the week's passed, we've got, maybe we've got some data to look at, but maybe there's some other things we need to tie in from what's been happening in the classroom and some trends that they see. So I think since we moved to that, I think our PLC